Okay, so now we're going to do our class outline. Let me open up a Microsoft Word document. And so, if you have read through both of those articles, you will know that you will see that both of these authors are arguing for vaccination. So, Roman numeral 1 in our class outline will be, and remember, you would not word your position should children be vaccinated, or should the United States require vaccination. It is a statement. Your position is a statement. So, children should be vaccinated. That's our position. All right? Now, what reasons do we have to support this? Let me change there we go, set it up like that. Children should be vaccinated against childhood illnesses. Okay, so under is our three, A, B, and C will be A, B, C, D, however many reasons you can come up with. A, B, C, D, E, all those capital letters are reasons why children should be vaccinated against childhood illnesses. So in the class discussion, we came up with a couple of different reasons why. First of all, many of these childhood diseases are preventable. Hold on 2 seconds. Let me grab a copy of what we did here. Okay, so one of the reasons we gave is that diseases, let's see, many deaths of children, many deaths can be prevented by vaccines. Okay, and that is one reason. All right, and then let's go and look at B, point B. What's another reason why we should vaccinate against childhood illnesses? How about the recurrence of many diseases like measles, which were once controlled or not eradicated? I don't want to say completely eradicated, because that would mean like smallpox has been eradicated. It's not around anymore. But things like measles and mumps and rubella had not been eradicated, though they were once controlled using vaccines. Okay? And those were the two reasons we came up with. Now remember, you always have to have a counter argument. So we're going to go ahead and save a place for our counter argument. Let's see. So our counter argument will be, if you looked at the information, would be that some parents fear a link between vaccines, and autism. Okay, that's our counter argument. You have to acknowledge that, because that is part of an argument, okay, part of the argument. But then in our rebuttal, we will overcome that, and that will be point 1 under there. All right, so now we can't have simply a 4 or 5 sentence essay. We have to really go into many deaths can be prevented by vaccines. Well, why? So if you so what we came up with was children have weaker immune systems than adults. Okay, and this is all evidence to support that many deaths can be prevented by vaccines. All right, so remember, your 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s relate to the point just above it. So this, number 1, relates to A, not directly back to our position. It relates to our reason. Okay? Many children have weaker immune system than adults. And then I would go on and I would explain how that makes them particularly vulnerable. Okay? That may be a lowercase letter a, particularly to disease. Okay? All right, so that would be B. Another thing we came up with, another piece of evidence we came up with to support that many deaths can be prevented by vaccines is that unvaccinated children put the entire population at risk. Okay? And so, some details that you may want to provide under unvaccinated children put the entire population at risk. Many are, well, not many, I guess we're assuming. These unvaccinated children have parents who fear the vaccines side effects, for lack of a better word. All right, parents who fear vaccine side effects, or immigrants. A lot of people who are unvaccinated are immigrants to this country and the children didn't have they didn't have a system of vaccination, widespread vaccination in the country in which they came from. All right, so of course we would want to develop all of these A, B's, and C's and 1s and 2s. We'd want to fully develop everything we know about this. If you have a 1, you should probably have at least an A, preferably a B underneath it. Okay, explain this. Take this as far as you can take it. Take this as, who are these unvaccinated children? Take this as far as you can take it. All right? And then the third point we made with regard to that under the point, the reason that many deaths can be prevented is that it should be a requirement for school admission. And the reason, of course, would be to protect the population. Okay? And then if I had examples or evidence of any recent outbreaks or specific statistics about that, I would include this. Now, we are going to, I know one thing that's been in the news lately was the measles epidemic, the outbreak in California, that apparently the ground zero for that was Disneyland. That's going to go under here. We brainstormed and we're going to put that under here. So, but if you have any specific requirements for school admission, if you have anything that you've read in the article or want to say anything about that, that would be the place here. Now remember, we have not at this point used anything other than really common sense and general knowledge, what we've heard on the radio and heard on the news, okay? If, however, you had specific statistics that you wanted to quote from one of the articles and you wanted to put that here, you must cite it. Okay, you must cite it. And typically, you cite it by providing, say, for example, you got specific information about the outbreak of meningitis or chickenpox or something like that. And you got it out of the Time article making the case for vaccination. No, I apologize. Yeah, that's the other article we used. The Time article making the case for vaccination. In the body of your text for an in-text citation, and you should have watched the plagiarism little cartoon tutorial that told you how to do in-text citations. We'll review that next week, but just for your information, you would put the author's last name and the page number. And since this was it was a page on the online magazine, it was on page 1 of the online magazine. And you put your punctuation after that, all right? You don't put a period in front of it, you put a period behind it. So it would be the author's last name is Blue, Laura Blue, space 1. No PG period or page. It's not necessary. All right? So that's how you, if you had quoted or paraphrased a specific statistic that was not common knowledge, you would have to give your author credit. All right? I do not know why that highlighted my B in there. Let's try that again. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so just remember, you must cite. We'll talk about that next week. Now, so we've pretty thoroughly developed that many deaths can be prevented by vaccines. We've provided good evidence and specifics and particulars to support that. Now, our next reason is the recurrence of many diseases like measles, which were once controlled. And note, I put like measles in between two commas because it's really not necessary to give an example of the diseases to understand that the recurrence of many diseases were once controlled. Okay? All right, so our first point under recurrence of many diseases, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry, I took a picture of this, of the whiteboard on my phone, and my phone keeps going to sleep. All right, so our first example under that was the recent outbreak at Disney. And I believe it was Disneyland. Okay, recent outbreak at Disneyland. Okay, and then you might want to continue to describe what had happened, and if I remember just from news coverage, that there were like 18 to 20 cases, primarily, and it was spread among unvaccinated children, and also infected some babies who were too young for the vaccines, so who were 6 months old. Now, underneath this, you could talk about how some people think that measles is not that big of a deal, but some children can suffer severe side effects from the measles, high fever, and a variety of other things. Okay, so while we may think, oh, measles, big deal, that's not that big of a deal. Well, you can support this recent outbreak of measles at Disney by providing some information that some kids, immunocompromised kids, some kids with other ailments, some kids who are otherwise healthy can suffer serious side effects, okay, from the measles. So let's go back. What's another reason or more evidence we can give to support the recurrence of many diseases by, like measles, which were once controlled? Well, our point number 2 was which were once controlled. The vaccines are safe because they undergo, and I got this bit of information from Straight Talk about vaccination, and that is from the Scientific American article. This is not common knowledge. This is something I got out of the article, and this is on page 2 of the article, and it's, let's see, I'm trying to find it. It is in the Scientific American article by Matthew Daly and Jason Glanz. I was trying to point it out for you so that you... Yes. It's on the second page, third paragraph from the bottom of the second page. It starts out, even when parents appreciate the peril of not vaccinating, they want to know the vaccine is safe. Because vaccines are given to huge numbers of people, including healthy infants, they are held to a much higher safety standard than medication used for people who are already sick. Nothing in medicine is 100% safe, however, and the absolute safety of vaccines cannot be proved. Safety can be inferred, though, by the relative absence of serious side effects in multiple studies. So that supports our recurrence of many diseases which were once controlled, but it is not from our, like these statistics that we might quote for requirement of school admission, it is not from our own brains, and it's not common knowledge. knowledge. It was provided from or by the author of the Scientific American article. So we have to cite it. Vaccines are safe because they undergo because they are held to a high standard of safety. Okay? And under that, safety proven has been proven in many studies. Okay? Presumably those are done at universities by experts. Okay? So, and we cannot simply act as though this is ours. We have to quote it. And this article, so get rid of the period after. This is a paraphrase. And when they said high standard of safety, I might even quote this because that's not my words. Let me just put, you don't have to quote the whole thing. I would quote it simply because those are not my words. So it is not high standard of safety, it is high safety standard. I want to avoid any possible impropriety or thoughts that I may have plagiarized this. So go ahead and put the exact words or do a partial quote of something that you can't really think of another way to put it. There is no better way to put it. This is a really good, very good explanation of the use of this, of the explanation of the safety standard. Go ahead and you can quote a part of it and paraphrase the rest of it, and that's what I've done here, just to avoid any impropriety. Now, and so of course I get rid of the, I don't have any end punctuation. I need to cite this. Now I use the author's last name. In this case there are two authors, so I use both of them, Daly and Glanz. D-A. And this is on page 2 of the article. Now, we put the period or the punctuation after. All right? So this is how we properly cite information that is not constituted as common knowledge. And if you don't have to do the whole quote, although you could surround this entire, use the exact words of the author. If you wanted to use just a partial quote of just some very specific words that you are keeping, you can do a partial quote, but you still have to note it. All right? Okay. So, so we have, let's go back and check our information. Children should be vaccinated against childhood illnesses. Why? Many deaths can be prevented. There has been a recurrence of many diseases like measles, which were once controlled. Okay, so let's support or explain our reasons. Many deaths can be prevented by vaccines. Children have weaker immune systems than adults, and they're particularly vulnerable to disease. Unvaccinated children put the entire population at risk. Unvaccinated children these children go unvaccinated because parents fear the vaccine side effects, and many of these are immigrants from countries that did not have vaccination programs. Another reason why they should be vaccinated under the category of many deaths can be prevented, it should be a requirement for school admission. Protect the population, and then if you had specific statistics you wanted to quote about that, I didn't see any really good statistics. I just wanted to use this as an example for what you might have for your A's and B's, and also how to cite that first source. Okay. Another reason why children should be vaccinated is that there's been a recurrence of many diseases like measles that were once controlled. And that is our second reason. There's been a recent outbreak of measles at Disneyland. Some children can suffer severe side effects from measles. And number 2, vaccines are safe because they're held to a higher safety standard. Safety has been proven in many studies. Okay, so now we have to present the counter argument, and I would do that. In this case, it's probably best just to do it last. If you wanted to do it between the reasons, I wouldn't do it first because I wouldn't want that to be the first thing my reader reads. I would want to either sandwich it between the two body paragraphs or put it at the end. When in doubt, put it at the end. So some parents fear a link between vaccines and autism. Now, in our article, this is not common knowledge, but in our article, there was, and this is the Daly and Glanz article, so it's the one for Scientific American. It said, it's the last paragraph of page 2, perhaps the biggest boost to the anti-vaccine movement came in 1998 when, in a paper in The Lancet, Andrew J. Wakefield and 12 colleagues proposed that the measles vaccine could cause autism in susceptible children. In the years since, more than a dozen studies have convincingly shown that vaccines do not cause autism. In fact, it is rare in science that published scientific findings have been so thoroughly and publicly disproved. The Lancet retracted the Wakefield article in early 2010. Most of the co-authors no longer vouch for the study findings, and Wakefield himself was accused of falsifying the data and losing his medical license. So, here's what I'm going to do. Up here, I've only quoted just some very specific words. Otherwise, I paraphrased this point. Here, I'm going to use an exact quote, and I'm going to quote the entire thing, but I have to introduce it. However, this link has been disproved. Now, I'm going to pick which part I want to use. I want to choose the part that the article in The Lancet has been discredited. And, let's see, has been disproved, period. The original article published in The Lancet, which is a journal of medicine, in The Lancet, I need to italicize that because it's a title, has been, let's see, the original article published in The Lancet has since been shown to be false after more than a dozen studies. I'm just going to use this part, have convincingly shown that vaccines do not cause autism. Now, you do not, there is a period in the original article. However, when I have an in-text citation, I drop the period, put my in-text citation, and this is Daly and Glanz, and this is page 2, and I put the period after. Okay? The only punctuation that survives an in-text citation is an exclamation point or a question mark. Okay? Because those affect the meaning of the words within the quotation marks. Otherwise, if it's just a period, you drop it. Okay? And unlike dialogue where you put a comma, you do not need any form. You do not need to put anything else in here. All right? So there's a couple different ways that we've learned today how we use quotation marks for dialogue, and also to show that we have taken material from an article or from a source directly as it's written. Now, a word of caution, if you are putting quotation marks around it, make sure it is exactly the way it appears in the text. If you do not want to include an entire quotation, say there was something that this sentence continued after autism, but I didn't want to use that part because it didn't really support my point, you would insert, to show that you have taken out part of the quote, you would use an ellipsis, which is 3 dots in a row. Okay, that shows, yes, there's more to the quote, but he or she, the author of this paper, has chosen to leave it out. If, however, similarly, if there was information in the middle, you would use an ellipsis. If you took something out of the middle of a quote, you would use an ellipsis. All right? So I would use that. Now, however, if it is at the beginning of a quote, you'll notice that there is more to the sentence in front of the word more. At the beginning of a quotation, I do not need to use the ellipsis, okay? People can infer that it is not the beginning of a sentence if simply because this is not started with a capital letter, okay? So, do not use it at the beginning of a quotation, but use the ellipsis and in the middle and at the end if you take out information. Okay? So I believe, so we have a counter argument, and then we have, this is our rebuttal. Okay, that's our rebuttal that brings us back to our argument. Now, of course, we'll talk next time about introductions and conclusions. This is just our body. This is all the good information. Let's talk about some organization. If we were talking about what would the best way be to organize this? And you'll notice this was a messy, ugly process. We moved things around, we backtracked, the equivalent of erasing. I would do this handwritten first and make all my changes, and then I would type it up and put it into the Dropbox. But you'll notice it doesn't have to be complete sentences. Some of these are suggestions of other ideas I might want to research. Once again, if you go add specific statistics, you must cite it. Okay, if you're going out looking for things. But bear in mind that this is not a research paper, and we want to limit our information. We want to limit the information or the outside citations we get from outside authors to less than, I'd probably limit mine to no more than 2 instances. Okay, so this should all be either common knowledge or your own conclusions reached from thinking about and reading about the articles and listening to maybe news programs about the issues. Okay, so back to text structure. Probably this would lend itself to a cause and effect. Where the recurrence of many diseases like measles that were once controlled. I might treat this as a cause and effect, whereas this is the cause and many deaths can be prevented would be the effect. So here's what I would do in that situation. And you have to think about how you organize things because it matters to your reader. It should be something that they recognize. So I would cut this, put it in the A position, and make this, many deaths can be prevented, my B. I would leave my counter argument right here. Okay? So if I were, I would show to anybody who is interested that I really put some thought into how I organized my article. So that's the last step. So, step 1, state your thesis or your claim or your position. Okay, it should be stated as a declarative sentence. Your A's and B's and C's, these are your reasons. Okay? Make sure that you have thought through, make note of your organizational structure. If it is most important point to least important point, or least important point to most important point, note that at the beginning of your, in front of your A's and B's and C's, okay, as I have done right here. Now, second step is to be sure we cite anything that is not common knowledge or that we have taken from either of our articles, okay? And we will talk about, so this is the body, and we will talk about introductions and conclusions next time, but this is, if you're curious what I mean by the outline that is due on Sunday, this is what I'm talking about, but it's an outline related to your issue, okay? Get it as in-depth as you can get it so that this kind of is a structure or a skeleton for you to hang your own essay on, and let me know if you have any questions or problems.